The year was 1980. A bank located in the city of Cambridge, USA had just been robbed of $10 million and special FBI agents had arrived to investigate. There was a huge hole in the ceiling of the vault and they couldn't understand how someone had broken through an 18-inch thick wall without anyone noticing. Even the bank's alarm system didn't go off. But the most shocking thing was that among the people who robbed the bank, one was a police officer who was currently investigating the case inside the bank with the FBI. How did the police rob the bank? Before that, it's very important to understand why the police decided to rob the bank in the first place. One night, a rookie police officer named Jerry Clemente was out patrolling with his senior. That's when they saw a thief stealing furniture. But instead of catching him, his senior drove the car up to the thief and started talking to him. That's when Jerry realized that this wasn't just any ordinary thief, but actually a police officer. That day, his senior told Jerry, "If you ever see a cop taking anything, just keep your mouth shut and mind your own business." On his very first day, Jerry realized how normal corruption was in the police department, and as time went on, their corruption only increased. But he had grown tired of these small-time thefts. He wanted to pull off a single heist that would set him up for life. And that much money could only be found in the city's largest depositor, Trust Bank. But there was a very big problem here. For investigating a major theft like a bank robbery, it wasn't the local police, but FBI agents themselves who would come. So if Jerry made even a small mistake, he wouldn't just get suspended from his job, but would have to go to jail for a very long time. But Jerry knew the entire investigation process. On top of that, the reward was huge, so Jerry was ready to take this risk. First, Jerry brings along his two friends, Joseph Banks aka Joey and Thomas Dougherty aka Tommy. Because both of them are just as corrupt as Jerry, and now the three of them start planning together how to rob the bank. First, they would have to disable the bank's alarm system. After that, they would have to break into the smaller safes and lockers inside the main vault. But while these police officers knew how to be corrupt, planning and executing a heist was beyond their abilities. So what should they do now? The police couldn't pull this off on their own. But the police did know of some thieves who were experts at this kind of job. Francis O'Leary, who was once a gangster and had plenty of experience with bank robberies. On the other hand, they also brought Becky Barrett into their gang, who was an expert at disabling alarms. Because there was something special about the bank's alarm system, it didn't make any noise. Instead, it would send a signal directly to the police station. So if this gets activated, the thieves won't even know whether the alarm is going off or not. And in this direction, Bucky Barrett tries to create a device that can block the alarm system's signal. But when he tries to install the device in the alarm system, he sees that there are a lot of wires in the alarm system and he doesn't know which one is the right wire. To test this, he would go to the bank every night after it closed to test the device. And every time Bucky went to test the alarm system, the other police officers would patrol the area so that no one would get suspicious. This process continued for almost 2 months and finally he figured out the correct wire and the right way to disable the alarm. So now they could get inside the bank, but how would they break through this 18-inch cement wall? If they tried to drill through it, it would take several days. On top of that, the sound of drilling would be another problem. They had to do all this work in a single night. That's why they decided to use dynamite. Yes, dynamite. Because with dynamite, the wall would break in just a few seconds and they could use the rest of the time to loot the bank at their leisure. But what about the sound of the dynamite explosion? The blast would wake up the entire city. That's why they waited for a special day, Memorial Day, because in America, fireworks are set off on Memorial Day just like on Diwali. So even if someone hears the sound of dynamite, they'll just think it's fireworks going off. On top of that, during Memorial Day, the bank stays closed for 3 days. So after robbing the bank on the first day, they'll have time to hide the money. So this day was perfect for robbing the bank. That's what they thought, because the police didn't know that on holidays the bank sends all its money to its main branch. On the night of May 26, 1980, everyone got together and went to rob the bank. First, Bucky disabled the alarm in just a few minutes. Now the next step was to break the door and get inside the bank. But everyone broke the lock of the neighboring shop and went in that way because breaking the bank's door was too difficult. Now there was only one wall between them and the bank. Without wasting any time, they started breaking the wall and it broke very easily. Now they had reached inside the bank and the bank's vault was right beneath their feet. Now it was time to break through this 18-inch thick floor. First, they drill a small hole and put a stick of dynamite in it. Then, they place sandbags over the hole so that the sound of the dynamite blast is muffled and the explosion is directed downward. During this entire time, Officer Tommy was keeping watch over the whole area. He was relaying all information about who was coming and going through the area to the others via walkie-talkie. And when there was no one in the vicinity, Tommy would give the order to detonate the dynamite. Now there was already a huge hole in front of them, but the iron rods were still intact, so how could they break them? So, to break those, everyone brought in a welding machine and started cutting the iron rods with it. But this was wasting a lot of their time. They had to rob the bank and escape before morning. Finally, at 3 in the morning, they reached the vault. On one side, there were safety lockers, and on the other side, there was a small vault where all the bank's money was kept. So using the same welding machine, they started breaking the hinges of the small vault's door. But that took them another hour, and when they opened the vault, there was only $60,000 in front of them. So much effort and such a big risk for just $60,000. Then they remembered that Memorial Day weekend is actually 3 days long, which meant the bank would be closed for 2 more days. So they did something that no other thief would even dare to do. They decided to go back the next day and break into the lockers, since there was going to be an investigation anyway. Whether you steal $60,000 or rob the whole bank, it makes no difference. On top of that, the police were involved in this heist. That's why they felt there wouldn't be any problem going back to break into the lockers. Everyone was very confident about this, but this very confidence was about to become the reason for their downfall in the future. Over the next 2 days, all the corrupt officers went there to break into the lockers, but it was taking them a lot of time to break open each one. Because of this, they started placing a screwdriver on the locker hinges and breaking them with a hammer, and within minutes, the entire locker would break open. But the surprising thing was that those lockers contained far more than they had expected. There was cash, pink diamonds, jewelry, regular diamonds, expensive watches, and over the next 2 days, they found a total of $1,200,000 in cash and nearly $7,800,000 worth of jewelry. In total, about $10 million had been stolen, and they loaded all the loot into a car and went to a friend's house, where they first divided all the money among themselves. But the biggest problem was with the jewelry, because it was very difficult to determine its exact price, and they couldn't sell it directly in the market either, since there was a risk of getting caught, and this is where they made their biggest mistake. Since they themselves were police officers, they knew that any theft investigation usually lasts for a maximum of 1 year. After that, the case is closed, so they decide that over the next year, they will gradually try to sell all the jewelry on the black market. But until then, all the jewelry was hidden with the bank, and all the officers went back to their daily routines. They had done the job so cleanly that all they had to do was stay quiet and wait. But this is where their carelessness began. The next day, FBI agents come to investigate, along with some local police officers. The next day, FBI agents arrive to conduct the investigation, and some local police officers are also present with them, including Tommy. And he was telling all these things to Jerry and Joe over the phone, like a detective. On the other hand, as soon as the FBI agents arrived at the crime scene, they realized that whoever committed the robbery definitely had inside knowledge of the bank. On top of that, the person must have known about the alarm system as well, and they also knew how corrupt the local police were there. That's why their suspicion fell on the bank employees, security staff, and directly on the local police officers. The FBI was definitely suspicious, but they didn't have any evidence against anyone. So they put people on Jerry and Tommy to keep an eye on them 24/7. The FBI even detained Jerry's girlfriend Barbara for questioning. But his girlfriend says that on the day of the robbery, Jerry was with her the entire time. Because just a little while after the robbery, Jerry meets Barbara and tells her exactly what to say in front of the police. No matter how hard the FBI tried, they couldn't find any evidence against the corrupt police officer. And in this way, almost a year went by. Even the FBI started to feel that maybe this case would never be solved, but they didn't know that the evidence was about to come to them on its own. Because during this 1 year gap, instead of keeping a low profile, all the corrupt officers started spending money recklessly. A new house, a new car, women, alcohol, cocaine, they were always completely intoxicated. On top of that, instead of selling the jewelry on the black market, Joey started gifting it to women. And when Tommy found out about this, he went to question Joey about it. But since both of them were drunk, their small conversation turned into a big fight, and in a fit of rage, Tommy shoots Joey. But this time, there was no Memorial Day, and the sound of Tommy's gun was heard by the whole neighborhood. Within minutes, the police arrived and arrested Tommy. Although Joey survived after being shot, the FBI found stolen jewelry in his car, and because of this, it was now certain that both Joey and Tommy would go to jail. But the FBI had no evidence against Jerry, and Jerry only found out about Joey and Tommy being caught the next day through the newspaper. However, he had no reason to worry because he knew that Tommy and Joey wouldn't talk. But Barbara had also read the newspaper, and during this 1-year gap, Jerry had broken up with his girlfriend Barbara, which is why Barbara told the FBI everything against Jerry. If you want to watch more videos like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.